Hello, I'm Ed Parcaut, host of Helping the Brave, and today's guest, let's bring him in. It's Mark Booher. Did I get that right? Sorry, I had to
Booher,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I've
you
been
don't have any.
called.
You couldn't fit it all on the screen, and what I think the problem was is I checked off something here where you can't add the. No, you have a headline. You should be able to put it on the line below it. So next
Gotcha.
time, if you're ever on StreamYard again, they give you choices of 2 line. Put your name on the first line, and then everything else on the second line. It'll be right there, perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
All right. That's okay. It's all new, like I
Yeah.
said, it's yeah. And thanks for coming on the show. I know
Yeah.
because I talked ahead of time in the green room that you were a soldier.
Still am.
Are
I
you
was on
still in?
active duty and now I'm in the guard component.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Why did you pick the Army? Not that's a
Well,
bad thing. I always like to know why people pick the service they picked.
I get, I was 19 and all of my family members, several generations had been Army. Most of my friends that had been in the service had been in the Army. I was initially interested in the Marines and I went down and talked to the recruiter, but nothing against the Marines, because I got a lot of buddies now that are in the Marines and I love them to death, but that particular recruiter was a tool. So I was like, I can't do that. So I went over and talked to the Army. So had it been a different recruiter, may have had a different outcome, but
Well, maybe it was the purpose of having that recruiter so you would go to the Army.
yeah, exactly. So
No, I mean, because I joined the Navy. I was a corpsman in the Navy for everybody asked me how long, 5 years, 5 months, and 14 days, but who was counting? And it just happened to work out because of the specialty school I went to, I had to extend for. And then
yeah.
by the time I was, everybody's like, you're gonna re-enlist. I'm like, oh, I'm getting out. I got my bachelor's, I'm working on my master's, I got other stuff to do,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I did because I missed the Gulf War by 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And me
Yeah.
being stationed with the Marines, I would have been pulled back in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, things have a way of working themselves out if you let it. So
Yes, everything. Yeah, there's a reason. I always ask people, and I'll ask you the same thing. Would you have, looking back, would you have done anything differently? And most people say no. And that's how I was. I mean, the fact of what I went through and how I came out, I wouldn't have
yeah.
changed anything. So,
Yeah. Right.
all right, what'd you do in the Army? I mean,
So
don't
I've
get me
got
wrong. I read everything on you. I just want to act like
no,
I didn't read anything on you. Okay.
yeah. So no, I've got 2 MOSs. I was in the infantry and in the intelligence field. So I've got about 12 years in, both on that active duty side and the National Guard component. So my current position, I'm an infantry instructor. So for guys that are reclassing, so guys that stay in, re-enlist, but they want to change their MOS from like some commo guy or intel guy, cook, the tanker, artillery, doesn't matter what you did. If you want to come infantry, we're one of the schoolhouses that will help you do that to transition and acquire the new career field. So we'll take people from the active duty Army, from the National Guard, and I don't know if the reserves, I can't recall if we've had guys from reserves, but they're eligible to come through there. And then we also handle what they call PME schools, which is the school when you're going from E5 or sergeant to obtain E6 staff sergeant. They require you to do these military schools. You have to check that box, and so the course we run is the Advanced Infantry Leaders course. So we run that one too.
Where you out of right now?
Right, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock,
Is
Arkansas.
where the schoolhouse is. Mm-hmm.
I bet where are you located? Little Rock.
I'm in Fayetteville. So it's about if there's no traffic, I can make it in 2.5 hours.
All right. I just wondering because I'm in California, Modesto.
Yeah.
So I always like to know where people are stationed.
Yeah.
All right. When you joined, where'd you get stationed and all that fun stuff?
Went to Germany for a couple years. That was back in the 90s, and I had got onto the Bosnia deployment, or Operation Joint Endeavor. So did that, came back, and then applied for a Green to Gold program where I wanted to get out and become commissioned as an officer. I wanted to be an infantry officer, but I had some medical issues, got hurt, and actually had an over 20-year break in service. And then I got back in 2018. So I've been a rifleman ever since.
And you got back in 2018. And you were in reserves as of 2018.
And the guard, yes, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
guard.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. Is it so the guards is all right, is that bear with me, somebody who doesn't know everything, and I'm in,
Yeah,
like I said, where I'm located, there's not a lot of stuff. There is a
sure.
guards around here, but I don't know anything about them. They need to
Yeah,
mow their weeds though. Can you call them and tell them to take
yeah,
care of that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes, I mean, it is a reserve status, I guess, but it's just it's all Department of the Army,
Right.
and they're kind of coalescing everything to where now a lot of the schools and things that you go to, we're all mixed together anyway, which is I think is a good idea. It definitely helps the guard guys and the reserve, the weekend a month and 2 weeks a year guys to kind of be doing things alongside with the active duty guys. Um, but yeah, it's the National Guard, which is got a state mission as well as a federal mission, whereas the reserves proper is just a federal kind of entity.
Right. And that's the not the reserves, but the other one, same type of working where you guys go to, once a month, twice, 2 weeks
Right.
out of the
Mhm.
year. Is that the same thing? It's just a different part of the army
Right.
is basically
It's
what we're
just
looking at.
yeah, it's just a different department, but same uniform, same structure, same letterhead. I mean,
But
yeah.
I guarantee you when you're in boot camp and then your AIT, you treated them differently than you did your regular army.
Well, I mean, when I
I
went through
saw the
basic
smile. It's okay. My son did the same
Yeah.
thing. He's like, "Yeah, they're just leaving. They're not regular army."
Yeah, yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a
But
mixed
it's
bag, man.
but then
It's
you
very
learn they're just like you. They have
yeah,
a different
yeah,
mission. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
But I
the guys we get that come through our schoolhouse though are, they're senior and they're well, they're junior enlisted, like the E4s or specialists. I mean, but they've been in for at least a hitch, or we get E5s, E6s come through. So they've done a hitch or two, so they're a little bit more mature and they kind of know the ropes. So it's not like we don't get like brand new Joe Civilian that just got his head shaved and is like doesn't know which way's up. We don't have to deal with any of that,
yeah,
luckily. So
yeah, luckily. I'm amazed how fast the army makes rank, you know. Well, my son anyway, airborne medic, he made it pretty fast. I mean,
yeah, right now,
he had to like not take his E5 so he could get his reenlistment bonus of 40 grand. And
hmm
then he got his E5 right after he got his bonus.
yeah. I mean,
Because
right
the difference
now
was
is
30 grand difference.
yeah, yeah. And as far as progression goes, it depends, when you're in, it depends on what your job is or your specialty. If it's high demand and they have those slots, you can get it. Like right now, it's a good time to be an infantry dude. I'll tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, they are scaling back though, right? Because they can't get, or no, they're not scaling back. They can't get enough people to
They
come in.
can't, yeah,
Yeah,
they can't get enough of quality people. But
no,
I hear that too from police officers. I mean, I think that's just an epidemic no matter where you're at. I mean, the education system's broke, right? So we're not the physical acumen of today's male is broke on
right.
average. I mean, just everything across the board. It seems like it doesn't matter where you go, everybody's hurting because we've just seems like we're turning into this consumer society that just consumes and doesn't get active, doesn't get about, doesn't want to be challenged, right? I mean, I didn't know what a safe space was when I was younger. I never heard that term when I was in school, and now it's just, now you have a right not. I didn't mean to get political or anything, but it
No, we're
just,
good. I don't care, man. I'm good.
but
I get
I mean,
political all the time.
I see that. I mean, it just seems like that, the society is so obsessed with comfort and security. And when you do that, it doesn't matter whether you're in the corporate world where, you can't challenge someone because, well, you don't want to offend or you don't want to create a toxic environment when all you're trying to do is square someone away to help them do their job better, when that could be taken as you're going after someone.
Yep.
That's what I hear from friends on the inside and everything. It just creates a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's where we're at right now is we're
Mhm.
just across the board. We're just in a dysfunctional epoch. And I don't know what the answer is, but um
I do.
or how,
So we're in 1970s again. All right.
yeah, yeah,
There was a movie Stripes. Did you
yeah,
remember Stripes? Okay,
hmm
that's exactly where we are again.
yeah,
All right. We created some weak people
Yeah.
And because we went through a war and other stuff, and then we have these weak people who don't understand what's going on and everything else,
Mhm.
and we're there again.
Yeah.
And the question is, we're this November is going to make a huge difference in our country, depending on which
Mhm.
way it goes. And I don't care if it was a Republican administration in right now or independent, whatever. I'm not knocking who's in. I
Mhm.
can, because I could do that
Yeah.
all day long. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if we don't make a change, they're going to think, hey, we can go the same way and keep going. Well, right
Mhm.
now, with the current servicing of our debt, it is greater than our actual defense budget.
Mhm.
We spent more on servicing our interest this last year than we do on defense.
Mm. Yeah.
That's horrible.
It's
That
staggering.
means we're going to run out of money if we keep going the way we're going.
Yeah.
And that's my take on it. So you need the change in order to remind these people that, hey, you can't always do what you want.
Right.
There's consequences.
Yeah.
If we don't, we're going to have the same thing that happened in California with
Mhm.
our governor that came back again.
Yeah.
It meant he
Yeah.
could do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
You need consequences, otherwise people don't stay in line. All right, enough about
Yeah.
our political speech for
Yeah.
now. So I'm sure we can get into it for more. All
Yeah.
right, so you had a break. What'd you do in that 20-year break?
Yeah, man. Well, I kind of floundered around because I really didn't have a plan B. That was so that was a life lesson. Got to learn how to adjust, right, and move on to something else. So I went and finished college, and then I actually decided to go to law school, and I graduated, and I was a deputy prosecutor and attorney for 6 years. So I did that and loved it. It was a great job. Probably as far as job satisfaction, feeling connected to my community and what was going around and the camaraderie. I mean, that was probably the closest thing to the military that I've ever had on the outside. But, everything's got a shelf life. There was a burnout. I topped out. This wasn't anywhere else I could go unless I was going to run for some kind of political office like a judge or something. And I wasn't going to have any of that. So
Weren't you
I
too
ended
young? Weren't you too young still?
well, yeah, maybe, but I tell you, man, I mean, just even watching my friends run for local positions like a judge, nobody pays attention to judicial races, on the local side, except if you're a member of the bar, or in law enforcement. I mean, most people in their community probably don't even know the name of their district judge. But you want to talk about just cutthroat and just seeing the dirty side and seeing what my friends who did run for those offices put themselves and their family through for, like, a race that nobody's even paying attention to. I was just like, man, I don't want any of that. So but so in 2013 I started my own training company. So Baradus Defense. So I've done some contracts. It's a security training company, consulting. So we've do law enforcement training. I've probably taught at probably 60 police departments across the country. I've done a couple of contracts or I've done a little work for DOD, not a whole lot. Trained some military units other than what I do in my guard capacity. And then training civilians. I've been to several states. I probably trained over 1,000 people in firearms, things like that. So church security consulting, things like that. So just anything that can kind of go in those buckets. That's kind of what we do
Okay. And you've been doing that for how long?
since 2013.
Well, I mean, all right. So you went from being a full-time attorney or lawyer,
Mhm.
whatever you want. Then you started this company. Why?
Well,
I mean, what made you
yeah,
think that and please no, it just, I'm trying to understand who you are and everything
yeah,
about you. It's
yeah,
not yeah. So when
yeah.
I ask questions, don't think it personally. It has nothing to do
No,
with
no,
any personal stuff. Yeah.
no.
I'm
I
just
got thick
curious.
skin. Yeah,
I'm just curious. I'm one of those guys. That's why I do this. I like to know what's going on.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It is strange. I don't have a beard. I don't have a bunch of tattoos. I wasn't a Navy SEAL. I mean, it seems like usually that's who you get in front of you that's doing that kind of thing. But I mean, part of it was, I guess I was naive. I didn't know that I couldn't do it, and really what drove me to do it was just sitting in my office as a district attorney and watching people who were victimized come into my office, and either they were a witness in an upcoming trial and they were too scared to testify, or it was some parents that were saying, hey, my daughter's ex-boyfriend is now stalking her. He's showing up to her work. We don't know what to do. We're scared. He's going to hurt her. What can we do? And really, as a prosecutor, there wasn't really anything that I could do. I mean, until you get your home broken into or killed or injured, like, I don't get involved in a case until it becomes a case. So there, other than to tell someone, well, you can go get a protective file for an order of protection, which is just literally a piece of paper that says this person needs to stay away from you. But, a piece of paper doesn't stop anyone, right? I mean, unless they conform their actions to the law. But if the criminals don't do that, so there wasn't anything I could do. But I did have a stint, I had some time in the Army, had some training, was trained with a lot of different people, a lot of different units, have been around the world. And so I thought, well, I said, I do have that skill set. And so I said, without trying to change the world, I could maybe affect some people's world, and empower them and strengthen them to become more self-reliant and self-resilient. And so I just started running some courses, and in between that and the law enforcement stuff we started doing, it just took off.
I mean, how do you, so I want one of your statements about the piece of paper doesn't do anything. Well, it's like a lock. Lock keeps out honest people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's truly what a lock does.
Yeah.
If a dishonest person wants in there, they'll figure a way to get in there. That lock's not going to stop them. And that piece of paper is not going to do anything except for somebody who actually obeys the law.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes in some cases, I don't know what the statistics are, but I can tell you anecdotally, just from my own experience in having these cases. I mean, sometimes the piece of paper can trigger something. Right. So you don't know. I mean, maybe that's enough to scare them off. If they have something to lose that they care about, then yeah, that might work. But if someone doesn't care and they don't feel like they have anything to lose, it could provoke them to do more. So I saw that too.
And it's even worse today.
Yeah.
With the non-law and order that we have everywhere.
So. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even some of the cases that I had where I really, had some bad dudes that I tried to hammer and send them away from some time. The jails are overcrowded. The prisons are overcrowded. They're paroling people out early. So, I might send somebody down on a 15-year sentence and in a couple of years see them right back again. And I was like, dude, I thought you were supposed to be in prison. So, I mean, after a while you get used to it. You just know, okay, well, they're going to, if they play the game and behave themselves, they're going to be out in a sixth of the time. If you give them 3 years, they'll be right back in 6 months doing the same thing. Wow. And they do. A lot of them do. Most of them do. So
now I heard somewhere that most of the stuff, all that type of stuff is really done by pretty much the same criminals. Meaning that, especially today, because they go in and they get right out. They go in, right. They don't even, in our area, not here locally, but around in the state of California, cashless bail, all that stupid stuff that they have. And they're like, the same criminals are doing the same stuff over and over again. We're not stopping them with what we're doing. Is that kind of what you saw?
Yeah. I mean, over time, it's almost like that's their job to be a criminal. Like it works almost the same way. So like, how do they make money? Okay, if you've got a drug dealer, he's got a skill set. He knows how to acquire the product. He knows how to push it out on the street. He has a certain amount of skill on how to evade law enforcement, but it's a numbers game. Eventually they'll get him. And it's just the price of doing business. So he's going to go in, he's going to do his time, he's going to get out, and then that whole network and structure is right there, and he's just going to go back and doing it again because it's easy enough. I mean, that's over time you see with a lot of these folks, and I know there are people who do turn their life around, and unfortunately I didn't really get to see those, but I saw a very big number of those who didn't, because that was their way of life, and they don't think like you and I do. They don't have the same thought process that we do as far as what they value in terms of value in their freedom or property or things like that. It's a whole different paradigm, and it's very hard as a law-abiding citizen to get your head wrapped around that. But that is how they think. And so it's just a price of doing business. It's just like with me being a business owner, I have to pay taxes. have to pay a lot of taxes, right? So every time I get money for a event, I know, well, you might as well take 40% of that and just that's gone, right? I mean, after your expenses or whatever, you just that money you don't own. And for them, it's just like jail time. That's just like your version of paying taxes, right? You're gonna pay the man his due, and then you're gonna come out and you're gonna get right back to it.
Because that's what they learned. That's what they were taught. That's how they were
Mhm.
done. Yeah. I mean, I interviewed a veteran. I actually had him come over to our Rotary because I'm president of my Rotary this year, and I'm doing more causes for local veterans because that's just who we should be.
Yeah.
And he was in. Excuse- Sorry, allergies
Okay.
these days. Uh, he was in the Marine Corps for 10 years, got out, then went to prison for 23 years for a stupid thing. He didn't murder anybody, but
Yeah.
during that, finally, he came up with a program to help vets not get reincarcerated again.
Nice.
And so he created a program, got funded by the government. I mean, our governor of the state of California. And while he was in, he's like, it was the first program ever done by a prisoner that was in the system. And so he got out, he's running that program, and he's never had a veteran go back in. And he says
Awesome.
PTSD either kills you or helps, or you go to prison because it's
Mm,
like dying. And so that's
mm,
what he's helping them deal with. So
awesome.
when it comes to veterans that go through that, that's usually what they're dealing with. They're not, there's all, and it's stuff that they learned from when they were kids. It just gets exacerbated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that I just had to state that, but uh,
Yeah.
what, so being in the security side now and running a company like you do, you got to love the fact that we've allowed 7.3 million people just to come across our border with not knowing who they are.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
good job security.
well, yeah. Yeah, you say that, but it's like the same people that allowed that to happen are wanting to deprive you of your ability to protect yourself at the same time. So, uh, that's an added challenge too, right?
Yeah, I'm just lucky I live in a county in California that our sheriff is really big on concealed weapons permit, that we have
Oh,
like 15,000 in our small county that we have. So people don't really come to Stanislaus County because we have a lot of concealed weapons permit and you don't know who you're going to deal with. So
yeah.
that alone scares people, not criminals, to go to San Jose where they
Mhm.
can't carry stuff, and
Yeah.
they'd rather do that stuff over there because they know someone's not going to have a gun. Plus they won't have to go to jail. They'll just be right in the front, right out the back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just worried. So if it's only a tenth of 1% of all these people that came in here that could be technically terrorists, that's a lot
Mhm.
of terrorists in our country now,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
waiting. And we only would have had 10 that took down all the stuff that happened with 9/11,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know the
Yeah.
exact number. I just guessed, but yeah.
I don't know, but it doesn't take a whole army to wreak havoc on your nation and your economy, you know, especially at the local level, right? But I mean, yeah, it's changed our lives. It's changed the way we open up bank accounts, the way we travel. I mean, it's impacted our lives on several levels, and it's going to again soon, right? So
Right, something's gonna happen.
yeah,
It's they're just waiting. I mean,
yeah,
look at what everybody's doing with cybersecurity and all those attacks that's happening, and it's gonna get worse. And that,
yeah,
again, that all has to do with how strong America is. We're
yeah,
not looked at as being strong anymore. We're looked at being weak.
yeah.
So
That's
that's
why
my take on it. I don't know about you. So
No, I mean, about the same. That's why I like for what we're trying to do is just and me and there's plenty of other guys and gals in this space that are just trying to it's not it goes beyond just like teaching people how to shoot or teaching people tactics and things like that, but I mean really to take responsibility for yourself, to for your own fate, for your own destiny, and not to look for some outside entity to do it for you because you I mean I don't I live in a I live in a nice area, right? We have a good law enforcement agencies. We have a good the public has a good relationship with those agencies, but at the same time, those guys are under strength, under trained, budgeted, right? And so even with the best response time, they're just not going to be there. And I found that just from being a prosecutor, it's hard for the police to get there in time to stop something. They're usually arriving to pick up the pieces of something that happened. So it there's like I tell people, like it's never in your it's never in your benefit to be victimized, right? Because once you do that, you can't unring the bell, right? You can't, if you have your property destroyed or taken from you, right? That criminal, he's not going to make restitution to you, right? And then even if he does, the psychological trauma of having your home invaded or broken into, or being robbed or anything like that, I mean, that you carry with that for the rest of your life. And now we're not even talking about just the physical implications of if it was a violent crime, if you had a loved one who was murdered, or you came within an inch of losing your own life, what that does to you psychologically. So there's just no way the justice system can repair that or make that type of restitution. They can't make you whole. There's this kind of doctrine in our legal, jurisprudence, talking about like making the victim whole. And it's a fallacy. They can't do it. And so your best bet is just to be proactive and to be, learn the skills of situational awareness, learning how to harden your home, making yourself a target, making yourself someone that would be able to detect threats and also deter them, when a criminal would size you up and look at you and say, that person's just not worth it. I'm going to move on to an easier target. I feel sorry for the easier target, but it's the responsibility of all of us, to fortify ourselves so that we don't become victimized.
And that's why we need somebody who's the president of our country to be stronger and not look at a weak situation, because they have, like, whether you love him or not, Trump, they had no idea what he'd do. So why mess with him? And I was telling somebody else, if I'm walking down a bad neighborhood, I don't care that I'm 280 pounds and I lift, and it doesn't matter. I'd rather be there with an asshole than a nice guy. Because that me and that nice guy, something's going to happen. If I'm there with an asshole, nothing's going to happen, because no one's going to want to mess with them.
Yeah,
And that's the
exactly.
difference with where we are with our country and our world. It's just, I'm not saying that you understand. I'm just, we need to relook at why we pick who we pick as our president. You can't go off of personality. Personality is the worst trait to pick them off of.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But then I think too, though, is that people don't pay enough attention to the local politics. I mean, your local politics really even has a bigger impact on your day-to-day life than even in the folks of DC. I mean, the folks in DC get, they take all the oxygen out of the room, right? All the spotlights on them. And it is important, but I mean, your governor, your mayor. I mean, you saw that with the lockdowns and the things a couple of years ago. I mean, I traveled during the lockdowns. I still ran training in various states. And I mean, wow, what a difference going from state to state, even different cities within a state, to see, some were uber restrictive. And obviously I didn't go into those, but the ones that were had less restrictions. I mean, what a stark contrast.
Well, so we're in California, right? And our sheriff's like, well, I'm not gonna impose any of that stuff on any of the people. That's not my job. Don't tell me to do that. But the local city took it upon themselves to go after certain restaurants who were still open and serving the public, saying, this is our choice, whatever. I mean, they got fined ridiculous amount of money, never paid it. Never paid it. And then, that was one restaurant in town that was still open, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everybody went there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to get into all of that. Just, that's just wrong in certain ways they did the things. I traveled everywhere. We went to Mexico more time than any other time. And just because it was a good time to travel, because there wasn't a lot of people traveling.
Yeah.
We were in a condo in Mexico in PV, and there was 4 other people in the whole complex besides the people that worked there. Yeah, we go in the pool. There was 6 of us in the pool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on one hand, as a consumer, man, you like those odds, don't you? But I mean, as far as, that's just not sustainable, right? Those places just can't stay open like that. So I'm glad to see things are down. But I mean, I think I remember when all that was, was at a head, right? And I don't know who said this, but they were just saying, hey, when this is over, it's never going to be over. We're never going to go back to normal. Things are never going to be the same. And I think that's true. I mean, I think that did a number on us. I mean, I think in so many ways we're just different. Things are different. I think in some ways, I think think there were a lot of people that kind of realized, hey, we've been had. At first you give those entities the benefit of the doubt, because at the very beginning, nobody knew, right? I mean, nobody knew, but I think they started realizing, hey, I think somebody did a number on us. I think, yeah. So I think on that hand, I think it's good that people kind of open their eyes up a little bit and said, maybe I can't just trust anybody just because they got certain credentials, or that people are influenced by money, by special interest, by things like that can skew an agenda, and it's
No
not.
way.
Yeah,
Really? No way. I
that's
mean,
the word on the street.
AOC was a bartender. Now she's
That
worth $20 million. How could that be?
that's the word on the street, man. I don't know.
I mean, that's why I was on a podcast. That's why I was late. Sorry.
Yeah,
One of the questions was, if you were a dictator, what would you change in the system? And I said, first thing I would do is change. And he didn't know what I was going to, what system he was talking about. I said,
yeah,
I'd put in term limits, period.
yeah, yeah.
Go back to how it used to be. You'd go from your small town, go to DC for 8 years and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah,
go there for a whole lifetime and be the top trader in the world. Nancy
yeah,
Pelosi and her husband. That's ridiculous.
yeah.
The money that's made, that's the problem. Without term limits, that's the problem. We need, I should have also said, then put more veterans in public office, because
Mm-hmm.
veterans can talk to each other. Doesn't matter the party. We can still
Right.
talk to each other and then go out and have a beer afterwards. We don't want
Yeah,
to kill each other.
yeah,
Old
yeah,
time veterans, maybe not the newer ones, but
yeah. Well, I could say, at least for the kids that I see that are coming through, I mean, there still is, yeah, there's a lot of weakness out there. There's a lot of, softness and out there, but there's still some hard hitters, yeah, out there
it's
that they know the deal, and they're trying to navigate this as well.
right. I mean, right now it's much harder, more expensive, more everything. Back again in the 70s and early 80s,
Hmm.
because 80s we got to 21% interest rates. I'm in the mortgage industry, and
Hmm.
not at that time, of course. I'm not that old, but I know history repeats itself, and
Yeah,
I know how important it is for us to keep things so we remember what not to do again. But I mean, these times are going to make our kids much harder
yeah,
than
for
the
sure.
kids that are in the middle there. That's our some of us parents' fault for not wanting our kids to struggle the way we did.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was the worst thing we ever did for them. You need to let your kids struggle, because hard times make strong people, and easy times make weak people.
Yeah, sure.
And we need that. We need that back again.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it's coming. I mean, I think we're starting to see the birth pangs of it right now. And I think, what I don't think it's has yet to get as bad as what it's going to get here, you know?
I hope it gets worse, because the only way it's going to change is if it gets worse.
Yeah.
Back to your statement about the local elections here in Stanislaus County in California. This last election, only 19.9% of the population came out to vote that could vote.
Really?
Yeah,
Does
the
that
election
include,
prior, that's
does that
everybody.
include all the dead people?
No, that includes the dead people. And they all voted
Wow.
Democrat. They didn't vote Republicans this
Wow.
time.
So
And if you
even the folks in the cemeteries are becoming disaffected, not wanting to come out. So,
Well, if you go back even further, so the one election before that was only 58%. So talking about how important it is to get out to vote, and that's what I talk about all the time on radio show. If you don't like the way it is, you need to get out and vote and stop bitching about it.
yeah.
Get out there and make your vote count, because it will. Because if you don't take your own ballot in there, somebody else will for you in
Mhm.
California. So be
Yeah.
careful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, there's especially getting back to the local thing, there's some of these local elections that people don't pay as much of attention to that really makes such a big impact on your life. And like, for instance, you talked about your sheriff, that is the most powerful law enforcement office in the land,
Hmm.
right? I mean, in each jurisdiction,
Hmm.
because, unlike the chief of police that answers to the mayor, it's a political appointment, right? So he doesn't have a constituency. He's wanting to keep his job. He's got to make the mayor happy. So if you got a, batshit crazy mayor, then guess what? Guess what kind of policy you're going to have. But with the sheriff, pardon me, can I say what I said.
It's too late. You already said it
Okay,
twice.
yeah, it's out.
Yeah.
It's out.
And you said it
Camera ring.
earlier too, so I didn't
Sorry.
say anything about it. You're
So,
good.
oh, sorry. But you know, your sheriff is elected by the people, right?
Mhm.
So he is beholden to the people. And your judicial races, man. You know, you hear these stories of, so and so got arrested. He's been in and out. He's been incarcerated. He's got this violent rap sheet, and he was let out on no bond. No bail, right? Or without posting a bail, right? Or just let out on his own recognizance. We've all heard those stories. Well, it's the judges that do that, right? It's the
Right.
judges that do that. So taking time to find out who your judges are, how they're been, and even though, they say the judicial races are nonpartisan, man.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It's total. It's total. Those
It's
people have, nobody is unbiased, right? You have your biases and I have mine, and, that shape the way we think and how we evaluate things. And, they take that into the job with them. They act like they don't. And I'm sure some of them try not to, but you can't help it. And so, yeah, taking time to find out who your judges are or who the candidates are, and making your votes and paying attention to those, very important, because that affects your safety on your streets.
I mean, that's why they shop judges when they want to pass certain things. Like they'll go
Yeah,
to the right
exactly.
district. Oh, why was that done in that district? Well, because that judge will say yes to us, and they won't.
Exactly.
And that's what Democrats have done. And that's not a party thing, but they know how, if they don't like what happens, they know to take it to a judge, and they know to take
Hmm.
it to the right district so they can get it on the whole
Hmm.
process through.
Yeah.
Where Republicans are like, oh, it didn't happen. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they need to. And I tell everybody, if you're going to harvest, everybody should harvest. Right? Everybody should harvest ballots. It's legal in
Yeah.
California. If Democrats are going to do it, independents and Republicans need to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Make it fair. Period. Everybody
Yeah.
needs to do the same thing. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and unfortunately, there's certain people who try to play fair. Bullshit. You can't anymore. Not in this world. Not
No.
way we set up. You have to do exactly what the opposition's doing,
Yeah.
to actually get everything fair again.
Yeah.
If there
Yeah.
is such a thing as fair again.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean,
All right, Mark, what's next for you? I'm sorry, I don't want to keep going on this for too long.
No. What's next for me? So we launched our podcast. We're trying to make a push on that, getting into the podcast space. So we're in our second season. So Pearl Snap Tactical Podcast. Second season, I've started having guests on there as well. So that's kind of a podcast. Just it's me and a buddy of mine, of my business partner, who was in Ranger Battalion. He's out now. He's a chiropractor. So I always say he's the most lethal chiropractor in Arkansas, but which is true. Which is true, and he's good with his hands. He's a really good person, good dude.
So he definitely could hurt you in the wrong situation.
Yeah, yeah. And then if
turn around and fix you the next day,
he could turn around and fix you, and everybody goes on their own way. So anyway, he's a good dude. We have a lot of fun on that podcast, but our mission is just, again, we had things that we're running in class. You come to a class, you're learning firearms and weapons tactics. You have the instruction, but there's a lot of things that we want to cover that's implicated in that topic, but the gun class is not the place to do it. People don't want to sit down and hear us talk and drone on about things or opine. So the podcast was a good opportunity to provide information that's going to make people stronger, faster, and harder to kill, but it's a more appropriate environment to do that, right? So a lot of the topics that we cover pair well with our courses that we offer as well. So people should check it out if they're interested in that thing.
And I assume it's everywhere, wherever podcast.
Yeah, on Apple, Spotify, wherever you go, it's on all the players.
Okay. Where do you look for your guests at?
Right now, just
now you're going to add you, because I assume for the last year or for you was just you and your co-host.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The first season was just me and the co-host. And so a lot of it's just networking now. So like, for instance, I had a guy that I met in the Kansas City area a while back ago that had been in the 101st Airborne. And it turned out that, when he was in the Army, his unit was tasked as part of a task force to go after al-Zakari. which was like the Al Qaeda
Mhm.
#1 guy in Iraq, right? That was their mission. Well, lo and behold, they just wrote a book about that finally, and it's an incredible
What was his
incredible
name?
story. Kelly Eads was the author. So incredible guy. So anyway, he and I hit off. I didn't know he was going to write this book. This was years ago. He and I became friends. We kept in touch. I'd see him when I'd go up to Kansas and run training and stuff. So anyway, he put this book out. So I found him. I network with people like on Instagram. I just had Tim Larkin, who's been on Joe Rogan's podcast, but he runs
Machine
Target
Gun
Focus.
Vegas.
Yeah, he's in Vegas. So yeah, you know who he
No,
is.
that's his place, Machine Gun Vegas.
Yeah.
I know
So,
Tim. I know Tim Larkin well. He was in there. He
yeah.
runs in the same circle I do.
Oh, cool. Well, we just had him on the show, so it's really good to get to meet him.
If you go to Vegas, let him know, and
Yeah.
he'll set you up at his place.
Really?
Yeah, because they have all the guns you guys ever shot.
Yeah.
I
He
took my
told
son
me.
in there, and he's in the Army. He's like, I shot that. I shot that. I shot that. It's like, but the difference is, it's just for the rest of us who didn't have that. I didn't have that as a Navy corpsman. You can't carry that. He did, and so it's amazing. Tim Larkin's place is amazing. Plus, he's really good on what he does in life. So
Yeah.
And then, but you need to find Anthony Stephen Malone. He was undercover in the prisons, and he was with the #2 guy next to that guy you just said.
Really?
Yeah, and he was in prison undercover, and he's from the UK. So much so that when he was taken out of the prison by the I guess English government, British government, whatever, they were like, this doesn't sound right. There's something wrong here. And come to find out, our generals have put him in there undercover to get close, because that's what he used to do, is go undercover. And so it's an amazing story, because I had no idea who he was, and he was introduced to me, and I had him on the Inner Edison podcast, which was really not the right podcast for it, but it was just amazing. I took him over to this. It was like our second or fourth show. And I'd already talked to him about my co-host at the time, because I had a lot more co-hosts back then. That's how I'm down to where I am now. It's just, I like the conversation between two people.
Yeah.
They were going, wow. That's all there you could say with what he told you he did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. I'll look him up.
Instagram. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can find him over there.
Yeah.
Just tell him I referred you to him.
Okay.
Who I am.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Then when the whole Afghanistan thing happened, he reached out to me and goes, hey, I'm back. You'll never guess where I was. And he was over there helping people out, getting people out, because he knew everybody. The problem was they actually detained him and another guy, and they actually knew who he was. And that could have been a problem.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And because the guy that had him, the big guy in charge, was like, hey, that was you were here during the that time when we're different whatever, we're here now, and this is where we are. And he got lucky.
Wow.
Because they knew because he knew he was the guy that was undercover in there who brought down everybody. So, and he actually was the one that found out really where bin Laden was.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, what? Man. Because all I hear about is a CIA lady.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He got the information from somebody in there, and then I think she's the one that clarified it and made sure it was correct information.
Wow, that's crazy.
Amazing what you learn, what you find out on these podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for coming on the Helping the Brave podcast. If you know anybody else that could come on here, just send them our way. Easiest way to do it is go to info@helpingthebrave.com. But anything else before we go?
No, man. Thanks, Ed. I really appreciate it. I had a good time.
I had an excellent time. And if you ever need any help setting anything up, just give me a holler. I do know how to do all this stuff, and I'm not looking to train everybody, but I'm just saying I do have all this knowledge from setting up multiple studios over the past 4 years.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I'll take you up on it. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Again, thanks so much for being here. And if you like what we do here, the best way you can do is just subscribe our YouTube channel, Helping the Brave. And again, Mark, thank you so much for being here today.